Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to The Forging, where trials refine us and stories ignite strength. And I'm here in, well, actually a beautiful day here in Essex, and I'm joined by KB, ex-Harlequins legend, very successful City banker, and now a counsellor. KB, nice. Thank you for having me at your house.
But I think I should have you as my manager, mate. With that intro, you should be managing my career. Mate, lovely to see you. Lovely. And listen, thank you for making the trip over.
Mm.
You know?
No problem. I needed the journey to absolutely clear my head after a long day at Swickers yesterday. Mm-hmm. Did you watch any of the rugby?
Only highlights.
No, all right. Powerful team, the Fijians, but I didn't think that the result was going to be in doubt. So, look, I'm going to jump straight into this, KP.
Yep.
So, of course, I've done some research into you. What an incredibly interesting chap you are. And on one of the podcasts, I think I spent most of the time laughing when you were talking. So I can't wait to hear some more stories from you today. So, look, you've lived a life of extremes, right? So you've top tier rugby. You came over from Australia. We'll go back to your childhood in a minute. But how do you and then global finance, really hitting top levels in global finance. But how would you describe yourself today, where you are now after all of that you've done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm in a good place. I'm in a really good place. The interesting thing. So I'm 9.5 years clean and sober. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and in that time, because of going to Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, those fellowships, there's a real, so I'm in a really good place today, but the reason I'm saying is because of what I've been through my life, and then the highs and the lows, and then getting addicted and going into rehab, recovery, there's a real lot of learning that goes on about yourself.
Yeah.
It's because it sort of works like this, that if you broad brush take it that cocaine use, extreme cocaine use is the symptom, then what's going on? What's the problem?
Right.
You know, what is it? What is it about me? And I got so intrigued about recovery and healing that because I am the way I am, and we'll get into this about once I dedicate myself to something, I want to be very, very good. So I studied, I got a law degree. I went to Oxford. Yeah. I played rugby. I played for Australia under-21s, Queensland, New South Wales, Oxford Blue, Harlequins. When I go to the city, I'm a director of a bank. When I do cocaine, I'm doing 80 grand a year. You know what I mean? Like,
you're on first name terms with the guys in Colombia.
Oh, mate, my drug dealer, I think he, when I stopped, I think he cried for about 3 months.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that these are the things I've learned in recovery. So how am I today? Mate, I'm in a really good place. Helping others as a counsellor and a mentor. Yeah, good. Yeah, healthy. Yeah, mate, I'm in a good place.
Sorry to jump in. Sorry, as you were saying that, I felt that, Kaylee. So we've only had a few conversations on the phone, and I've just come in and plunked my bag down, and we just started chatting, and within a minute, I feel like you're already digging back into the dark pits of my soul, just trying to bring some stuff out. I'm thinking, all right. And I was immediately relaxed, and I was starting to tell you things. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, I've come here to get you on here. You clearly, you are clearly buoyed by that, and I can see your light and your energy change with that. And I think, obviously, I've not gone through any therapy with you, but you're very good at putting people at ease very quickly.
Thank you.
So what stands out then? You talked about that success, everything you've done. We'll talk about areas that you've not been successful in. All of those things you've done. What is it that gave you that? What gave you that drive? Was it an ego thing? Was it a money thing? Who are you proving, and what are you proving?
Okay. I grew up in central Queensland, in Rockhampton, and Dad was a secondhand furniture. He owned a secondhand furniture shop. Mum owned Mum worked as a secretary at a medical insurance company. So there wasn't a lot of money, and they gifted, my parents had this idea that the best gift they could give 3 boys was private school education at secondary school. So they both worked very, very hard, and pretty much all the money in the household, once the mortgage was paid and food was on the table and shoes on feet, taxes paid, etc., pretty much whatever was left was just to educate 3 boys, my 2 older brothers and myself. So I always felt a sense of obligation to repay them by being the best I could be. Right. So
was there a guilt thing?
No, I think there was a recognition that they'd worked very hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You had that thought?
I think so. I think it was, well, okay. So I said to you before about what I learned in recovery.
Yeah.
So I did a law degree. So I left school and I did a law degree, and mate, I didn't particularly want to do law.
Yeah.
Right. But I knew particularly my father would be happy if I did law. Right.
Yeah,
and so, and I did 6 years of law, and mate, it's like sort of a bit akin to self-harm. Like, I just thought, fuck, like, mate, I'm not enjoying this.
It's dry, isn't it?
Oh, mate. And so, but then I finished law, and I just practiced law for 18 months, and then I threw it in. But going back to your question, so what I realised then was I people-pleased. I wanted to repay my parents and go, look, you know, there's the... Maybe my father told me just recently, Dad's 90 years old and he's alive and he's really sharp, and there's a lot of love and respect between, you know, me and my dad and whatever. Although it wasn't always that way. When I was a teenager, and Dad and I butted heads a bit, you know. Right. But I wanted to prove to him, I wanted to show him. Right. And he sort of challenged me at times. Okay. Like I remember saying one day, I'd love to play for Australia one day. And he like pretty much laughed, you know, like, mate, because if you're going to play for Australia. But that ignited me. You know, I thought, you know what? Fuck you.
I'll show you that.
Yeah. So, and there's definitely a lot of, mate, small country town. I remember saying to someone, you know, I left Rockhampton to go to Brisbane. And, you know, they said, no, you won't play first grade in Brisbane, you know what I mean? Because I was doing really well in Rocky playing rugby, Rockhampton, my hometown. Yeah. And I thought, you know, every time anyone said, you know, you can't do it. Yeah, no, mate, what are you doing? Anyone said that, it was like, you know what, fuck you. And so I had a driver within me. I had a drive to prove to my family, especially Dad. And I think the other thing was that my first addiction, I think, was adulation. So, mate, when I was a really shy kid, and then I was a good runner, and then I was a good swimmer, and then when the games turned up, like cricket, rugby league, I captained teams, and mate, I liked it. I went from this really shy kid. Yeah. And I loved getting man of the match awards. I wanted to be player of the year.
I feel that.
I know, right? And so when I got good, and it was literally, then it morphed into, how far can I go with this? And then there was 2 guys in Australia, right? They both played for the Wallabies. One was a guy called Mark Lane. Mate, I've got to tell you something now. It just came to mind. No. You don't look dissimilar to Mark Lane. You. Really? He's a big dude. Yeah. You know, he had beard.
Really good looking.
Stunning. Have you seen him? So anyway, Mark Lane was a number 8 for Queensland and Australia, and he ran like a runaway train, mate. He was just bang.
Like David Lyons, just straight carries.
Now, I didn't play rugby like him, obviously, because I'm in the backs or no.
Well, yeah, athletic and skillful.
No, yeah, but no tackling. Easy on that. Contact. But what I liked about Mark Lane was he's Dr. Mark Lane, and I thought, how impressive is that? Yeah. Playing for Australia, and he's a doctor.
Yeah,
right?
that's
and I thought to me, and there was another guy called Michael Hawker. He played in the centres for Australia, and I do know Michael actually. And anyway, he was a Wallaby, and he was in finance. And I'm reading this stuff, right? Yeah. And I'm thinking, that's what I want to do. It's not good enough to me. If I ever had the good fortune to play for Australia, the Wallabies, which I didn't, but I played for Australia under 21s. But my goal was, when I left school, I want a major degree, you know, a major recognised job in society, like achieve.
Of course, yeah.
And I want to play for the Wallabies. So I wanted it all.
Those are big goals.
Yeah. And so I ended up being a director of a bank.
Yeah. You fully fledged lawyer when you? Yeah. So you became a lawyer.
Yeah. So I got the lawyer.
That's not respectable enough for you.
No, I didn't like it. Mate. When I practiced law, I was 18 months, right? And I rang my brother, and I said, because my older brother's a lawyer. Right. So I rang him, and I said, mate, I can't do this. And he said, what's up? I said, mate, I'm in a fucking little glass office, just fucking papers and
Paperwork
books
everywhere.
everywhere. I got one phone. I got a secretary at the front. I don't see anyone really. And everyone who comes into my office has got a fucking problem.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And
That sounds awful.
and then when you build them, they're arguing the toss about the bill. You know,
Right.
and I just thought what I did realise as time went on, you know, you and I, as we are here now, like banter, bit of fun, that rugby thing, you know, mate, I like comradeship and fellowship and friendship and loyalty and team. So that's where, and that is my core. So when mate, I said before, I was a pretty good runner and a pretty good swimmer.
Yeah.
Mate, you jump in a pool up and down a fucking black line for an hour, like,
it's boring.
yeah, but mate, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Get 20, 25 rugby players in a changing room and run out, and the piss taking and the banter and the loyalty,
absolutely,
the support. You know, I've got some, just to jump into counselling a little bit here, right? Just an experience. I've got some guys, clients of mine, and they are married and their jobs are on the outside look quite successful, right?
Yeah.
And there's just 2 or 3 of them, right? They didn't have a male authoritative figure in their life. Or if there was one there, he didn't model them about being a husband or being a father, right? And yet these guys are totally immersed in rugby and have been their whole lives. And I've got a theory that when they got into the rugby club, part of what was missing from their father, they found at a rugby club. They found guidance, direction, support, compassion. They were held. To some extent, they were loved, right? And they were supported and encouraged and motivated, all that sort of stuff. And when I'd say this to these guys, they're going, fuck. And I said, yeah, that's why, you know, that's one, not the only reason, but that is one reason. One guy in particular, his father was, you know, his father was pretty much non-existent in his life. And he fell into a rugby club and was nurtured by that rugby club. And still to this day, he has a love for rugby and a rugby club. But I said to him, once we went through the sessions, we understood why.
Yeah.
Right. And so, mate, rugby, so getting back on track, mate, I love team sports.
Yeah.
That's me. And when I left rugby and got into the city, and there'd be 10 guys on a desk, guys and girls on a desk, or 15 or 20 or whatever, I felt that teamwork again sort of thing. So when I finished rugby and went up into the city, and there's sort of like a win-loss things, you know, you train all week, you go out on the weekend at rugby, and you're either going to win or lose. Well, when I played, so in the city as such, but as a trader, mate, I'm against the market. So there was a lot of similarities between being a rugby player in that environment and being the best you can be, and the mindset about I've got to take on the market, I've got to be prepared, I'm going to win, I'm going to lose. How do I react when I lose?
Is there still that camaraderie though? Because when you were talking about how rugby actually, and I think it's a team sport thing anyway. I only know rugby as a team sport, but I'm sure football's probably the same, or other team sports. My old boxing coach, Billy Bessie, he put something up yesterday because he was saying, look, boxing and sport particularly fills the gap. So if you don't have certain love at home or boundaries, and you're trying to make sense of things, join a sports club, join the boxing club in Lee Park that he runs. And I completely concur with that. And then just as you were saying that, I was then reflecting back on me, and absolutely, I find huge comfort going to Haven Rugby Club on a Saturday. And I did go, and I've seen it with a couple of lads I grew up playing rugby with, all very good players that could have played at a much higher level, but they kind of stuck with the club. As we were getting to 35, 36, 37, we were starting to lose that identity a little bit because we're not that relevant at the club anymore from a playing perspective. And then you start, self-doubt comes in, and then you start thinking of yourself as an old man. You're not an old man at all. You can still do it. But I was then scratching, thinking, well, what's my role? What can I do at the club? I tried coaching. I was not a very good coach. And anyway, they kind of found me a role on the microphone being the gobshite MC. So I bloody love doing that. Sometimes I get a bit too pissed and I can offend people, and I've had a few complaints. But the best thing my dad ever did for me was take me to rugby club. We're talking before we sat down here, but that's the best thing that he ever did for me. Absolutely. So, what you talked about the city then? You felt the same drive and the same, I suppose, endorphin release by being part of that. But was it the rugby that gave you that discipline and that drive to be the best? Well, did rugby enhance that because you had that? You said you had that from a young age with your running, your swimming, everything, because you wanted to prove to your parents. And that's lovely, actually. I think that's for you to recognise as a young lad, like, no, I need to do this for my old man. He's worked really hard, and my mother. That's a very mature way to look at things anyway. So you obviously quite a switched on lad as a young lad, right? So was it that same young lad that was there in the city, or did rugby really help you then make that step to be great in the city?
Well, I think what you said there, that lineage there, I think I had something in me, a drive, right? Obviously I had some ability.
Of course.
Right, okay. So I had some ability. Got some really good coaches, one in particular, Alec Evans in Brisbane. Alex is an amazing coach, an amazing person and friend. So he was a massive influence on me. And then, so I had all that going for me. And then what I love about sport and team sport in particular is, there's all the ingredients there to take that template from rugby or any sport, especially team sport, into a business or professional dynamic. So let me explain. So, at rugby, there's preparation, organisation, routine, structure, right? There is a leader and there'll be a leadership structure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got like the director of rugby, the rugby coaches, the assistants, and then all the support staff, especially these days. Back in my day, there was, a man and a dog running the show, but now professional rugby's like, I saw the other day, the All Blacks have got like 32 support staff or something ridiculous, or 25 or something, right?
Yeah.
And then you learn, playing rugby, you learn about teamwork and how it's absolutely key. You learn about yourself, about my application, my role within this organisation. You're looking to improve all the time, whether it's to get bigger, faster, more skillful. You're always sort of like, there's back in the days video sessions and feedback, whatever. And all these, learn how to win, like with grace to some extent. Understand that you're going to lose sometimes, and that's okay. You'll learn more in defeat than you will in victory. All of that sort of stuff. So when I interviewed in the city, I felt that I actually said, look, I'm a high achiever. I know how to win. I sort of basically, with that spiel I gave you, I would give that in interviews. And I think that was I think they sort of thought, this guy, well, seems to know what he's talking about. So we might give him a job. And so when I got up into the city and I'd left rugby, and when I got to Citibank, I'll tell you a quick story, right?
Yeah.
So there's this job that came up at Citibank, and I was broking. So I was money broking for a company called RP Martins. And the guy that was the trader at Citibank I spoke to down the phone said, there's a job going here. I reckon you should apply for it. And I was 30 years old. So I'd been broking for 4 years. So very, very unusual way to try to get into Citibank. But they were looking for someone who had experience in the market, right?
Right.
So I said, oh, fuck this, I'll go and give it a go. But it's like going from, some fourth division football team for a trial at Chelsea or Man United.
Right,
right?
Yeah.
So you're sort of thinking, I'll give it a go, but we don't know, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I go along and I had 6 interviews, right, for this job. And I didn't get it. And they rang me up and they said, mate, you got down to the final 2, but we're going this other way. But thank you very much for applying and everything. And I said, oh, okay, no problems at all. Thanks. And I thought, fuck, I went so close to, to going, because broking's
interviews.
Yeah, it gets better. So 2 months later, I'm sitting at work broking, right? And the thing with broking is broking is like a real estate agent.
You're in the middle.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, right? Whereas banking is, you've got your cock on the block. You're the guy that's...
If something fails with your decisions, you
correct.
fucked up.
So you're either going to, you have the ability to make a lot of money and get paid very well,
Yeah.
or you've got the ability to lose a lot of money and get sacked.
Right.
So, you know, they're the,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like it's, you know, there's a lot of pressure there, but the upside financially is very good.
Yeah.
So anyway, 2 months later, I get this, they call me back and they said, oh, no, you know, there's another job. I said, okay, fine. So go for it. Mate, I have another
You
6.
didn't have to do that.
I had another 6 interview.
Why?
Fuck knows. Anyway, on the 6th interview, right? Fuck it. Like,
But by the time you're thinking,
Mate,
it's mental. You've literally just,
And
I've
they
not changed in the
no,
last 3 months.
And
I'm the
obviously,
same man.
they're thinking about me. You know, they're obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, what happened was on the 6th interview of the second lot of 6 interviews. So
Yeah.
this is interview
The
number
12th.
12. So, mate, Citibank used to be on the Strand in London. It's now Canary Wharf. But so I go there, right, and I noticed that they have this technique where they go, "Oh, have you got any questions for me?" That's what they'd say.
Yeah,
Their last
yeah,
question, right?
yeah.
Sometimes I'd ask something, sometimes I wouldn't.
Yeah.
This time I thought, I'm fucking going all in on this. And I said, yeah, is the cleaner anywhere near this office? And I think it was a lady, and she like looks at me and goes, is the cleaner anywhere near this office? I said, yeah, it's the cleaner. And she said, no, it's like 4 o'clock on a, Tuesday afternoon or something. She goes, no, the cleaner. Why would you ask that question? I said, because with all due respect, I've been interviewed by absolutely everybody else, right? And I was like, I wasn't being a smart ass.
Wait, did you have this up your sleeve?
Yes.
You thought, right, 6th interview, you're having it.
Mate, at the 12th interview, you got to come up with something
12th
different.
interview, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm balls in on this.
Quick jab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I said, but this is my 12th interview, right? I said, so I don't know why I chose this name. I said, but I'm Crew Alexander. And back when I was there, Manchester United were top of the league back then.
Yeah.
I'd go,
So the original Man United,
Yeah.
when they were good.
correct. So I said, I'm Crew Alexander. You're Man United. I just want a game, right? I said, so with all due respect, and I'm not being,
Yeah.
I was really, so I'm not being a smart ass.
Yeah.
I said, I would prefer you either give me the job or say no,
Yeah.
right? One way or another.
Yeah.
Mate, job offer the next week. Job
Wow.
offer the next week. And where I was going to with all of this was that first year at Citibank, I thought, I can't do this. I'm out of my depth. I'm out of my
Your
depth.
first year at
My
City.
first year at Citibank. And I thought, I can't. I was doing all the functional stuff. I was booking trades and I was covering people, traders that were off the desk for an hour or maybe a day or a week or something. But I couldn't see how these traders were actually making the money. Like what were they seeing that I couldn't see? I dropped a stone and I went to the doctor and I had these red, dry pieces of skin under my eyes and I wasn't sleeping.
Stress. Yeah.
So doctor says, mate, you're really, really stressed here. And the reason I was stressed was I thought to myself, this is the first time in my life that I am going to fail at something
Yeah.
that I want to be good at. See, I'm no good at golf, right? I'm no good
Same.
at golf.
Same.
There's plenty of things I'm not good at, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is my history tells me that when I get absolutely focused on something
Yeah.
and I think I've got the goods, history tells me that I do quite well,
Yeah.
right? And I thought I was all at sea and I thought I'm going to this. And I thought,
Oh, wow.
you know what I thought? This is what I thought. I thought, fuck me. This is what failure feels like. This is what I've had injuries, I've lost games,
Yeah.
and I've had, when I say failure, I've had
But
disappointment.
they're small elements in
That's
it.
right.
This is an absolute
This is my job.
life-changing
Vocation, direction of travel. Anyway, mate, believe it or not, at the time, the boss calls me in, named Frankie, really, really good bloke. And Frankie calls me in and he said, just thought I'd give you some feedback. And I said, mate, I wasn't even a year in. I was about 9 months in, 10 months in. And I thought, here we go. I'm just about to get, the old imposter syndrome.
yeah,
I'm not worthy. I'm
yeah.
out of my depth. I'm going to get found out. You know what I mean? Fuck, and all that
Absolutely,
shit's like, mate, I'm going to bed and I'm waking up in the morning, the voice is going, what are you even going to work for? You're a fucking lizard. You know what I mean? And I'm thinking,
That's so relatable.
this is not good.
Yeah.
I think I lost all my hair then and it started. So anyway, Frankie says to me, oh, look, just to let you know, mate, you know, all the boys and the girls are, they speak positively of you and you're doing really well. And then he said, look, if you're not really seeing the market or how they're making money, don't worry. You'll get there. You'll get there. Just
You'll
relax.
start seeing patterns.
Just relax. Yeah, right.
Wow. What
And then
leadership.
Yeah, fantastic. And Frankie he was one of the best bosses I've ever had. And he just gave me what he didn't know. And I don't even know if I actually confided in him, but he didn't know that I was struggling mentally.
Yeah.
When I say struggling mentally,
Are you sure he didn't know?
possibly, I don't know. I don't know.
Couldn't that be an element of his great leadership?
Possibly.
Because if he's
He might
gone
have
out of his
seen
way
it.
to say that, he's obviously you've gone through 28 interviews, so they know how often you clip your toenails, right? So
Well, he probably saw that I was having Valium sandwiches every day.
actually, you're right. That's the what was the power of that man then? So that conversation, how powerful was that? And kind of in life, there are these people that you will meet that actually give you that little push that you need. That absolutely, wow, thank you. You're like, so have you ever talk to me about that guy then?
Yeah, well, so he and I don't speak to him these days, but he was actually in the first. I was I ended up being a Citibank. So first year struggle, ended up being at Citibank for 18 years. So you know what I mean.
So, but he saw that.
Yeah. So the first, he was quite present in. He was my boss for about 5 or 6 years, and we sort of kept in contact. I haven't spoken to him for ages, but I'll tell you another. And he was supportive of me, and he liked. See, this is interesting, right? Because of the rugby background, you sort of, you know, the pecking order.
Yeah.
You respect the pecking order. You respect bosses. You respect your captain. You respect the coach, the director of rugby. So I respected my bosses, and I gave them and the bank everything, because that's what you do as a rugby player, right? You leave it all out there and you give your best, right?
Yeah.
And I think he sort of saw that, and he was very supportive of me. He gave me my first trading book, and 1 year, my very first bonus I got, I think, was the best. You know, the funny thing is, the best bonus I think anyone ever gets is their first bonus. It'll be nowhere near your biggest.
Yes, yeah.
But when you've got no money, someone, I think I got $20,000 US, and after tax 10,000. After the exchange rate, I might have put £6,000 or £7,000 in my bank account, right? And I just thought, fucking sensational. Those designer jeans, that holiday.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so I got my first bonus, and the guy that I was second in charge to, a guy by the name of Chris Wilcox, who's now fucking, his career's stratospheric. And Chris said to me, "Oh, were you happy with your bonus?" And I said, "Not really." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, I just sort of thought," and I explained to him what I'd done. Anyway, he must have said something to Frankie, and Frankie said, "You got a second?" I said, "Yeah." And I went into the office, and he said, "Oh, you weren't happy with the bonus?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Why?" And I went, "Oh, look, I covered Chris here, and I covered that book. That was, I made, X, $1 million trading for that guy, and I made $1 million trading for that guy. And if you look at the percentages that were going on, and and he said, "No, you're right." He said, "I'll sort you out next year."
Okay.
Right. So what I'm saying is, most bosses would go,
"It's what you got."
Just it's what you got, like fuck off, sort of thing. But once he knew that I was genuine, I wasn't. And I said, "Listen," I said, "Frankie, the first thing is I'm grateful for a bonus. Let me just put that out there. I'm not
being stubborn.
I'm not kicking. No, I'm not. But I was asked a question, and I answered the question honestly.
Absolutely,
And he looked after me, and he sort of. I remember him saying, "Well, what can we do in the meantime?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know." He said, "Are you going home to Australia for holidays or something?" I said, "Yeah, I was going to go home to Australia." He said, "Well, look, go home business class and go into the office for 2 or 3 days in Sydney to make it legit and whatever. And the flight and your accommodation in Sydney, best hotel in Sydney for 3 or 4 days. And that's my token of respect at the moment. And I'll sort you out in the rest of the bonus next year," which he did. And the other thing I'll tell you about, Frank, another story, right? This is fucking a second. When I was money broking at RP Martin's, I had this client. His first name was Ben. I think it was Credit Suisse First Boston. Can't remember his surname. Anyway, he was paying us a lot of brokerage. And I'd brought him on board with, like I cultivated the relationship and got to know him, and he liked rugby and he'd been to a private school, and not that I've got airs and graces, but you talk the same language and all that. We go out, he liked my banter. And anyway, so the Bluebird Cafe on Kings Road, right? Okay, Conran restaurant. It was a bit of a thing back in the day. So it comes up to Christmas, and I said, "Oh, Ben, we'll go to Bluebird. We'll fucking wipe the afternoon off, and we'll go into Bluebird." And he said, "Yeah." And mate, he wasn't a massive rugby guy or whatever. He's just a really good bloke, just a top bloke. He's that English guy, and I'm the Australian guy. We just vibed off each other sort of thing. Just good fun. And he's paid us a lot of brokerage. Anyway, so we go to the Bluebird and we got back then they just introduced the motorbike taxis, right? You know, so you jump on the back and you got the headphones on. Yeah, motorbikes, you get around London, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so
I did not know
I said,
that.
oh, fuck that, we'll do that, you know. So I said to him down the line, right, we're going to, go out the front of Credit Suisse First Boston at 12 o'clock, a motorbike's going to turn up, jump on the back of that, and I'll see you at the Bluebird on Kings Road, right? So we go into the Bluebird, and mate, it's just like, it's a nice restaurant. It's not, by far and away, not the most expensive restaurant in London or anything like that. But we're like, you know, fucking lobster and, you know, fucking champagne, not the stupid champagne, but, you know, so I knew it'd be a few £100, right? Yeah. But things got away from us a bit. He says, oh, we'll have a dessert. He said, oh, do you want a sticky? And I said, well, what's sticky? He said, dessert wine. Call it sticky.
Oh,
and I said, yeah. Is that what it's called? I wouldn't know. So he goes, do you want dessert wine? And I said, oh, yeah, I'll give it a go. I'd never had dessert. Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, right. So I said, yeah, okay, we'll have that. You know, we've had 3 courses and lobster and, you know, champagne and cocktails and, you know, so it's starting the hours are ticking away and, mate, it's great fun, right? Mate.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, right. So anyway, he goes, oh, I'll order it. And I said, yeah, mate, whatever. You know, I don't even look at the price, right? I knew I was in trouble when the waiter was wearing white gloves delivering this fucking dessert wine. And I'm going, red flag, right? Red flag. I still don't ask, right? And he goes, I think we'll have a second bottle.
He's topped you up there, hasn't he?
So he goes, oh, I think we should have another bottle. And I'm like, you know, I'm 8 in and fucking champagne, mate, yeah, get a crate of it. No. So we have a second bottle, white gloves again, and like, you know, mate. And I'm thinking, it's not like Rockhampton. In Central Queensland. That's it. Anyway, cut a long story short, they said, oh, would you like to be members of the Bluebird Club? And I said, what's that mean? Oh, we've got a private area out the back and we're selling them now for £250, but they're going to be sold for £2,000 sometime. And I love a bargain. Yeah. So I said, yeah, well, we'll have 2 of them. Mate, the bill comes out at, we sit down at like, I don't know, 12:30 or something, mate. We walk out at like 5 or 6, mate. The bill is £1,500 in 1997. So 30 years ago, the bill is £1,500, right? And I'm going, fuck, we got a problem now, right? So I go into work the next morning, and I'm like, when you're in a rugby club and you know you've done something wrong and you got to go and tell the coach or the captain or the president.
Can I have a quick word?
Correct. Yeah. Mate, got a quick word. So I said to Frank, I said, mate, got a quick second in the office? He said, yeah. I said, mate, I think I've got a problem here. And he said, what's up? And I said, well, I went to lunch with Ben yesterday from Credit Suisse First Boston, and he knew I was going. He said...
Who gives you lots of brokerage?
Yeah, right? And he said, have a good time. I said, look, I want to take Ben to the Bluebird. He said, mate, that's fine. He's paying us... You know, he's actually, I wasn't at RP Martin's. I was at fucking Citibank at that time. Sorry, I was at Citibank. That's right. And Credit Suisse First Boston were giving us a load of business. Anyway, he said, look, he's given us a load of business across a number of currencies. That's right. It wasn't RP's, it was Citibank. Anyway, so Frankie goes, I said, he says, so what's the problem? And I said, the bill. And he said, he goes, because obviously this is not his first rodeo, you know. Yes. And he goes, with a trader. So he goes, all right, how much? And I said, £1,500. And he said, what, for fucking 2 of you? He said, what the fuck did you eat?
That's about 10 grand nowadays.
Oh, whatever, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I said, mate, dessert wines? He said, stickies. I said, yeah, that's what he called them. And he goes, yeah, they're expensive. And they can get very expensive. I said, yeah, no shit. And I said, mate, we've got 2 memberships. And anyway, he said, all right, okay. He said, listen, just put down a couple other bags and and, you know, just, okay.
Add some names to the list.
Yeah. So Frankie was very good, but it also explains what the city was like.
Yeah, the frivolity.
In the 90s and in the early 2000s. They've tightened up a lot on expenses now.
Right.
But back then, between brokers and bankers, that is the one story. And I've got to be honest, I said to myself, I'm never doing that again.
Okay.
Yeah, because I thought that's bullshit.
Taking the piss.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to, mate, look, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, mate, I'm a country kid.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from Queensland country, not off a farm. I'm from a town.
Right.
But, mate, I just grew up in Queensland's very, very, it's all about, you know, being truthful, shake of a hand, look in the eye,
Yeah.
you know, all that sort of stuff, and don't owe anyone any money, and make sure you work hard and be honest.
Solid principles.
Yeah, solid principles from Queensland.
I never thought I'd hear that from a shackled wagger, you know?
Yeah, so
Okay.
So that was, yeah, so at that point, to be totally honest, at that point of my life, in my early 30s, I'd had up until that point an unbelievable run. The only black mark on my life up until sort of my mid-early 30s was my brother died when I was 16. I had a brother who was 18. And
no.
so from diagnosis to death was probably about 2 months. So he got a thing called systemic lupus. And that knocked me, you know, like I was very close to Scott. And when I was told, it was crazy. It was the day before we had to play a grand final for my school, and I played 2 years of first 15, my first year, and Scott had been at the school and then worked at the school as a groundsman because he was, you know, he wasn't overly intellectual or whatever, but beautiful soul. And my father, we had a game of rugby there on the Sunday, and we were the school at a retreat down near the coast, and we were at that retreat preparing for this grand final, and someone said, "Oh, your father's here." And I said, "What's Dad doing here on a Saturday morning? You know, we're preparing for this grand final." And I went up, and mate, it was just overlooking this bluff, you know, like, so, you know, out there was just the ocean.
Wow.
And we were just standing, and there was this, like, if I remember correctly, there was a fence. And I came up, we were down on the beach. I ran up this sort of path up the mountain sort of thing, or the bluff. And Dad was looking out over the water, and I said, "What's up?" And I was looking at his back. I said, "Mate, what's going on?" And he turned around, he had mum's glasses on, you know, ladies' fashion glasses. And I was like, what is going on here? Anyway, he couldn't speak. And he just took his glasses off, and made his eyes were red raw. And it was the first time in my life I had a very, very clear understanding of intuition. And I said to him, "It's Scott, isn't it?" And he couldn't speak. He just went like that. And I said, "He's dead, isn't he?" And he went like that. And mate, you know, in my life, I have realised that the things that are going to absolutely blindside you, absolutely knock you arse over head, are the things that you will not see.
Yeah.
And that moment, that year, I was playing first 15, I'd lost my virginity that year. You know, like, what I'm saying is, I was like, mate, I was just, you know, this world of sex had opened up, and I'm playing in the first 15, and at our school, first 15, you were gods.
Yeah.
And life, literally, at that stage, I was just on the trajectory, and, mate, like little things, full head of hair, mullet, mate, I was...
Of course you had a mullet.
Of course, rocking it. And, you know, like, there wasn't an ounce of fat on me. I was just like, mate, just playing rugby and playing in the first 15.
Absolute hero.
And, mate, I literally went from the penthouse to the outhouse in like a moment. Now, the thing about that is, as hard as it was, mate, it was to some extent quite a contributor to the person that I went on to be, because I understood that life could be fickle at times. And I I remember whenever I achieved something, I'd always look up the sky and just sort of say to Scott, you know, "Mate, this is as much for you as it is for me." So if I got a law degree, or I played for Australia, or I played for Queensland or something, I always remember my brother. You know, that, you know, people who are out there, what I realised is that certainly in recovery, everyone has challenges. Everyone.
Of course.
100%.
I agree.
Right? So whether it's loss of a loved one, you know, there's numerous people who'll be watching this who will have grown up in households where there's been alcoholism, or addiction, or criminality, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse. There will be, you know, loss. There will be, you know, all sorts of mental health stuff, maybe abandonment, rejection. And you know, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do today, especially for men.
Yeah.
You know, those rugby guys who are out there, and like, you know, what we say, Butts, is you would have spent more than half of your life convincing everyone that you're not injured. right?
I was made of chocolate. I was always injured. I was always injured.
But even when you're injured,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
get back soon, and
yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
just, how are you,
yeah,
mate? Mate, good, good,
yeah,
good. And some people rehab for 6 months or 9 months, mate. It's brutal, habit.
yeah.
Mentally where it takes you and whatever. And I had some quite bad injuries where ended up in hospital, major operation on my leg, and and when you're in your 20s, early 20s, you can recover quite quickly physically and mentally. When I got to 30, I didn't want to play anymore because I was a bit fragile, and it wasn't, I knew my body was a bit fragile, and I knew if my body got broken, I could come back.
Yeah.
But mentally, it was just getting fucking harder and harder. But so, what, and I'll just have a plug now, is that this is what I do today, is that tough, resilient, strong men, I'm saying to you, if you're out there and you've got some issues, you want some help, reach out to me.
Absolutely.
Because I've been down all these roads, these challenges.
You have, and there's some bits that there's so much more that you've got, and I know we're fairly limited in time, but when you were talking then about walking up to your father, I was suddenly. I was struggling myself. Because as a father of boys, I'm suddenly thinking, how would I cope with anything? I can't even begin to imagine that. Like, honestly, it'll end me right here.
You know what? The one I this does get me even to this day is, so I lost a brother. My father did the dad thing, the male thing. He just shut down. All he did was work his guts out, and I don't think I've ever talked to Dad about Scott until latter years. You know what I mean? So he was, he still had to, and his father never told him. My grandfather on my father's side never told my father, "I love you" once, ever, right? And my father did his best as a father, but I now understand latter times that he lacked a bit of capacity at times, right? So when Scott died, my father just pretty much shut down, did the man thing, just shut down, don't talk about it, just get on with life. Mate, the one I feel for is my mother. Right? She passed away 9 years ago. I was only about 3 months clean and sober, and I was very, very close to my mum. She was just a lovely lady. But get your head around this, right? I lost a brother. My father lost a son. My mother lost a son that she carried for 9 months, delivered into the world safety, and was there providing nurturing in the nest with her children,
course,
3 boys in the nest, right? I've got, I was very, very close to my mum. We had very, very honest, open conversations. And, I did say to her, I said, "Mum, I don't know how you got through it." And she said, "I don't know how I got through it." She said, "I don't know how I got through it." She said, and I think that as fathers, we can have a sense of love and connection, but I don't, because of literally the umbilical cord. There's that little bit that we don't understand.
Yeah.
Like the pain of delivery and all that
absolutely.
sort of stuff.
But carrying the child for the 9 months as well. I relate to that. I see that with my kids and their mother. They've definitely got of course they've got a different relationship, but there's that slightly deeper connection. And I'm not offended. That's life. That's nature, right? It's really well put. So you got hit by that at you were at 16 years old. You were just starting to play first team rugby. I'm thinking of myself at that age. That whatever I was doing, I don't know how I'd have dealt with that. But how did you turn that into a positive? You said you started to see life differently. You could see how fickle it was, and actually, if something can happen like that, was it a case of, I'm going to make every single day count now, and I'm going to do it for him? Was it that? That your?
There was a bit of it. The other thing as well is that, again, we come back to sport. A lot of roads lead back to sport.
Did you play that afternoon still?
So yes, I did. So what happened was we drove back to the house, and in the house was Mum, elder brother Mark, and Dad and I, 4 of us. And we're sitting there, and the grand final was the next day. And someone said, I don't know who said, "Are you going to play tomorrow?" And the coach had said, "Listen, you don't have to play tomorrow," right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, I don't know." And we come back to Mother's, right? And Mum said, there's quiet. I distinctly remember this. And Mum said, "Kent, you don't have to play," right? She said, "But Scott would want you to play." Right?
Yeah.
And right, mate, in 1 second, I said, that's it. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to play. So I went from doubt, should I play, should I respect Scott and not play? What's the right thing? What is the right thing to do, you know? And Mum just said, Ken, you do not have to play, and everyone would respect you if you didn't play. She said, but just Scott championed to me.
Yeah.
He wasn't any good at sports. He loved the fact that he had a younger brother who was good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he was proud of you.
Yeah, he was. And so I said to Mum and Dad, I'm getting out of this house now. I'm going up to because all the guys had come back from the retreat up to the school. They cleared out a boarding. I wasn't a boarder. I was a day boy, but they cleared out a boarding wing for the first 15 to get, mate, just big. You know, rugby at the school was big. So he's cleared out this boarding wing, fucked the boarders off to another, I don't know where they were.
Rugby players are more important than you right now.
That's it. And put us in there. And I had to be around the boys. I didn't want to be in that house. In that house, it felt like the walls were dripping with grief
and sadness.
Yeah. So I went up and the boys, they were all like, mate, yeah, okay. And they just enveloped me, right? And then next day, I remember the next day, we woke up next day and the headmaster came. Our headmaster was crying. He came over to me and just cried, hugged me, cried. Mate, we went out, we won. I played really well. And I've noticed ever since that if I ever see this, there's a number of stories I've seen since where guys have lost a brother or mother or father on the cusp of big games, on the eve of big games, and have gone and played, and they have said they have felt that someone sort of was with them and that they've played above themselves, sort of thing. And mate, that's how I felt, mate. I remember goal kicking. I remember, mate, I was 16 years old and we scored a try right in the corner. I took it back to the 22. Mate, I'm about 2 feet in from the sideline.
So that's
a goal kicker.
It's a very difficult angle.
Yeah, right, mate. And I hit it and it never deviated.
Centre.
Mate, it just went straight through. You know, kicked every goal, made breaks, and I made a break right towards the end of the game, threw the fullback, threw it inside to our halfback, scrum half, our captain, Geordie Laurie. Geordie ran the length of the field and put it down under the sticks. Mate, the rest of the team were back over halfway, mate. I just sunk to my knees and sobbed my eyes out because I knew we'd won.
Yeah.
I knew it was over. Once we converted that, there was 10 minutes to go and they weren't going to get us, sort of thing. Mate, there's a photograph of just I'm on the ground and there's all the guys are just there because mate, that's sport.
That's incredible. I'd love to see that. Because I know the meaning behind it now. That's incredible.
So, but the interesting thing about that, you know, as I said, I learned a lot in recovery. Because I lost Scott and I went back to sport and I got back into my groove, you know, like playing first 15, and it's like a sanctuary. It's like a support base, a rugby club's thing again, you know. So I'm going to training. I've got a purpose. It's taking my mind off things. I'm doing weights. I'm doing my sprints. My body and mind are sort of growing and getting back into it. I hit the booze for a couple of months, and Mum noticed that, and then one day she said, I just said I wasn't going out and I didn't want to do it anymore. I just wanted to concentrate on my sport and my school again, and she was very relieved about that. But what happened was when I ended up in rehab in 2016, and I went into rehab 63 kilograms. I went in 10 stone.
What were you playing at, 90 kilos?
Yeah, I play at about 90. Yeah, anywhere between. And so I went from before the addiction got hold of me over. So I used cocaine for about 20 years, but last 3 to 5 years I was a full-blown addict. All right, I was just addicted to this substance, and I used every single day. So I dropped a lot of weight because, you know, cocaine's an appetite suppressant. So the more cocaine you do, the less you eat. And I was doing so much. I was having a half a meal a day or something, or one meal or something.
Wow.
And some of that was being thrown up because I was just full of cocaine. Anyway, when I went in, I went from 90 kilograms to 63 kilograms. And when I went into rehab and I sat...
Sorry, if I saw that in someone, I'd be asking questions when they were probably at 70 kilos.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions being asked, and I said that I was okay, I was very stressed, because that's what addicts and alcoholics do. They lie and deflect. And what happened was 2015 Rugby World Cup was in England, 2015. So guys came over from Australia and they did exactly that. They said, what the fuck is going on for you? And I said, oh, look, I'm all right. They wanted to have an intervention. I said, no, fuck off. Because that's what addicts and alcoholics do. Leave me alone. I've got this under control. Troy Coker played for Australia, a really good mate of mine, won a World Cup in 1991 with Australia. Troy and I have known each other for 19, still great mates today. See him every time I go back to Australia, which is every year. Okay. And we were walking through South Kensington, mate. I'm about 3 or 4 grams of cocaine in. I'm off my head, you know, and anyway, and I'm going to show you a photograph. And anyway, so, and he says to me, he puts his arm around me and he says, mate, we're going home to Australia in 3 days' time. You need professional help, please.
Oh, bless him. That's
Right?
love.
Yeah, he had his arm around mate. Troy's a big dude, 6'6", and he's got his arm around me in South Kensington about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he just said, mate, you got to get help. You got to get help. So, mate, that's where it took me.
A skeleton.
Yeah. Can you get that on the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look like the chap from Salem's Lot.
Mate, it was.
That's unbelievable.
So I'm sitting in rehab, and 4 days, mate. So you go to rehab, what do you do? Oh, fucking three grams of cocaine the night before. So, mate, I go into rehab and I'm literally like this. Go, mate, here you go. KB. Used to play for Harlequins. Yep, fucking. And, mate, these guys, there's fucking heroin addicts and crackheads and cokeheads and they're like looking at me, and I didn't know this, but they were going like this, like fucking, like this. Right? And I'm going, here you go, mate. And anyway, a guy said to me, he said, mate, how you doing? And I said, yeah, good, mate. Good. Fucking, mate, rocking. It's all good. He said, mate, no, you're not. You're in a rehabilitation centre and you're here for a reason. And the reason is, fuck.
You got in there for a social. What's that?
Right, yeah. Because I'm 3 grams in from the night before, mate.
Doing the luteal diet, yeah.
Mate, I got hit by a train because 4 days in, I'm sitting on the side of a bed, single bed in my room, and I just sat in the side of the bed and I'm just crying my eyes out, sobbing. I've got so much going on. I've got anger, I've got resentment, I've got guilt, shame, remorse, embarrassment, self-pity, self-loathing. Mate, I had 32-inch jeans on, and if I took the belt out of the jeans, my jeans went straight to the floor. I had no fat, I had no muscle. I could see all my ribs, I could see all my collarbones, I could see all my jawbone, my cheekbones, all my bones, everything I could see. I was just a fucking skeleton.
Were you still working at that point?
No, I'd left the city 2 years. I'd been out of the city for 2 years.
Right.
So I semi-retired at 50 and, I had properties here in Australia and pension and super and cash and shares and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of that, but a good proportion of that's gone because of divorce and all sorts of things. So I set up a cab, me and a guy, business partner, brother-in-law of sorts. We had 100 London black cabs, which we rented out. They were going really well, but COVID killed that company. Some money, and I put £600,000 up my nose. So I was doing just so everyone sort of understands what we're talking about here, I was doing 20 to 30 grams of cocaine a week at the end. Some days I was doing 6 grams and I was doing £80,000 a year on coke. And just to put that in wine terms, because not everyone knows all about cokes, 20 to 30 grams would be the equivalent in alcohol, because I wasn't drinking at all. I was only doing coke. So 20 to 30 grams is like 30 to 40 bottles of wine a week. Right. And I was addicted. And I don't say that with any great pride. I'm just saying this is a fact. And that's where addiction takes you. So I go into rehab. 4 days in, I'm crying my eyes out. And there was a guy in there called Nick. Nick was a counsellor, a really good bloke. And Nick said to me one day, he said, mate, I think you're going to be okay. And I said, why would you say that? He said, mate, you keep asking questions. And it reminds me of when I was a rugby player or a student or up in the city. I wanted to get it. So I'm asking questions. I want to be better. That mindset comes back.
That, like, from your young, that mindset, the essence of you was
mindset,
still there.
How can I get this? How can I play for Australia? Like, how can I be a good trader? How can I make more money? And I'm going, how can I beat this addiction? Anyway, I came out of rehab. And after 8 days, I relapsed and I was living down South End and I went into a hotel down there and I was in there for 3 weeks and I was going industrial on cocaine, relapsing, right? And I don't know if it was the last hurrah or I was trying to kill myself, but then I had a moment, and this is the moment I wish. It's called the spiritual awakening. That's what we call it in recovery, but it could be, light bulb moment, aha moment, whatever, moment of clarity. And I was laying on a bed. I'll never forget the time. It was 3:22 a.m. on the TV, the clock on the TV. And I lay on this bed and I thought, fuck, this is it. This is it. My whole life has come to this one moment and I'm either going to go back and die a drug addict. Because, mate, when you're doing that much cocaine, the stress on your heart.
Of course, it's a stimulant.
Yes, right. So used to live in a house, this house, and I thought there'd be somebody coming up the stairs. It was my heartbeat. Boom, boom, boom. I'm thinking someone's coming up the stairs. I'm getting ready, thinking, fuck, someone's broke into the house. And it's my heart beating against my chest plate. Boom, 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 boom.
Oh my God.
Right off the chart. So I'm in this lay in this bed and I went, fucking done. I am done. I'm fucking done. And I saw a guy the next day and I said, I think something happened last night. And he said, well, we've all been here before where we think something's happened, but then we've gone and drunk again or drugged again, right? Yeah. And mate, that was the 17th of June, 2016. The next day was the 18th of June, 2016. That was my first clean day, right? And since the 18th of June, 2016, I have not picked up one line of cocaine or drunk any alcohol. I drink 0% beers, right? I have not had a sip of alcohol or a line of cocaine or any other mind-altering substance since that date, so 18th of June. So wow. I'm coming up 9.5 years clean and sober. And then in that time, I got offers to go back to the city. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that anymore. I was director of rugby at a couple of rugby clubs. But I was just, and then I started at the recommendation of that guy, Nick, from the rehab. I ran into him one day and he said, you'd be a really good counsellor. There's people out there that would, in that city and rugby world, that would, you'd help people. Yeah. And I thought, I'm not too sure. Went and studied for 2.5 years, did 6-month course, loved it, psychology, loved it. Yeah. How the brain works and why we do the things we do, and, Freud and Carl Rogers and Panetsky and all these people. Oh, I fucking loved it. And I thought, I'll do the diploma. So I do the diploma. And then I had to do 100 hours at Mind, the mental health charity, as placement, right? Yeah. To get my diploma. My first client was a 24-year-old girl. Her mother was an alcoholic. Father left very young. Mother was an alcoholic. Mother died of cancer. This young girl was struggling with her own sexual identity. It was totally unmanageable at home with her auntie and grandmother or something like that, mate. It was just like, this is my first hour. So I come out of it and I go to the boss. I said, look, I think this young lady needs someone a lot more experienced than me. And he said, mate, she's got you. Like, just be compassionate, whatever. Did 12 sessions with her. She was great. Things changed a lot for her. We went on this journey ourselves. Anyway, about 3 or 4 months later, I was sitting at home and I answered an unknown number, which I never do. And it was her. And I immediately said, are you okay? She said, yeah, I'm great. And we had this thing called, there's this exercise, Problem Island, Solution Island. I said, what's on the Solution Island? She said, so it's a vision, a manifestation of the future. And she said, I want to, she'd worked out she was gay. Yeah. She said, look, I want to be in a loving relationship with a woman. I want to have left Essex. So she said, I want to go somewhere else in the country. She said, I want to be in tech. She got a degree in, I don't know, technology or whatever, or something. She said, I want to be in a tech company, and I want my own place, my own apartment. Anyway, she rang me and she said, I want to tell you something. And I said, what's that? She said, I'm standing outside of a real estate agent just about to sign off on my first rental with my girlfriend. I'm in Newcastle and I'm working for a tech company. Tick, mate.
You must have gone. Yeah.
And I didn't, just like tears just started coming down. Yeah. And right in that moment, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Yeah. And I do this now, counselling and mentoring. So I go and jumped on LinkedIn. Yeah. Right. And I'm thinking, professional people. And I thought I was going to be an addiction counsellor. Yeah. And next minute I've got these professional men ringing me up and saying, will you mentor me? And I'm going, yeah, okay, mental meaning. I know what it means, but do I have to study?
What's the expectation for
what's
this?
It correct? What's the expectation? Yeah. So now I've got clients all over the world.
That's incredible.
Brazil, Dubai, Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia. And these guys, mate, Netflix executives, crypto trader, guy who's got his own recruitment company in Hong Kong, mate, all sorts. Guy in London, really, really top surgeon, number of bankers, number of brokers, a few rugby players, some ex-Prem guys.
Wow.
Who are struggling with the transition.
Right.
And I'm trying to
Can
reach
we
out to
just-
them at the moment. And they are leaning into, they're just drinking a bit too much and just doing a little bit because it's a coping mechanism.
Absolutely. I recognise that.
So they're going from something that was very secure, safe.
Funny, they can see they're coming to their expiry date.
And then they've got next minute, you've got that profile you had of yourself gets pretty much shredded, and you've got to reinvent yourself. And in this world where, like, premiership rugby player, I've got a strain. There's physios all over you, straight to the hospital for a scan. This is your rehab. This is what you got to eat. This is what you got to do. Okay, fine. I've got to, cough. Doctor, I'm thinking about, I've got to find a place. I've got to relocate. Okay, how many kids you got?
Absolute care and everything.
Everything is just there because you're the product.
Yeah.
So they are investing in you to ensure that in that 80 minutes, you are absolutely prime. Right. So, of course, when that safety net and that nest and that routine and the routine and structure goes and they wake up, the career's over. And I remember I'm not famous by any stretch of the imagination, but we'd rock around southwest London. Peter Winterbottom was a really good mate of mine. So Wince and myself and a few other guys, Craig Luxon from New Zealand and a load of other guys. And sometimes we'd be out. And if Will Carling or Brian Moore or someone comes along and they're getting a load of attention, you're getting a bit of glow yourself, just a little bit of glow, Oh, this is KB. KB plays fullback, never fucking heard of him. Want to talk to you. But I remember when I went up in the city and you just, all of a sudden, something you're nobody, but I realised that was gone.
Right.
It was over. I was never going to run out on the stoop ever again, and the crowd. And
that's still awesome.
Oh,
you've got those, you've got all that.
And the thing that rugby players miss, and I certainly missed, is that 5 minutes just before you go on and you run on, and in your team there'll be guys from different coloured skin, different religions, different levels of education. Some people are from loving families. Some people, the father abandoned them. But it doesn't matter.
Absolutely right. That 5 minutes, that intensity of emotion and focus.
And you're in your colours.
Yeah.
And you are one. And what you are saying to your...
I missed that.
Yeah. What you're saying to the guy beside you is, I will not let you down.
Yeah.
I promise you. With every ounce of my fibre of my soul, I will not let you down. And that's reciprocated. Right? And you go out, and when you win, there is fucking no benefit. And when you lose, mate, you lose together. Right?
Sorry, mate.
That's all right. And then when you get up in the city and it's not there, you miss those days. But they're special days, mate. They're special days. Aren't they?
They are so special. Oh, mate, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I just
you're human being.
I bumped into a good mate of Twicker's yesterday, Pete Living, and I say, crikey, I really missed that. Yeah, exactly that moment as you spoke about it. I'm in the haven't changed room, and we're all looking around at each other because we're just about to go to war, and we're primed, we're ready to go, and you're just looking around at everyone, and you're like, "Come on, boys, we've got this." And that intensity of emotion, and you're absolutely right. And I'm looking at all these guys, and I want them to know, I'm going to kill anyone that comes near you. I've got your back, boys. All of you understand that. And I know they've got mine as well. And that hit me for 6 then, mate. Sorry about that.
It's such a unique dynamic.
Yeah.
And biggest bonus I ever got in the city was $2 million.
It's insane money.
Well, I said to you before, just to let everyone know, right? So $2 million is half of that goes in tax. So now it's $1 million. And I told you I put £600,000 up my nose. So that $2 million, I've got nothing left of that $2 million. That one. But and I said to someone, I had a conscious crisis once, and I said to someone, I said, what are we doing? I got a few £100,000 bonus or something. I said, what are we doing? He said, what do you mean? I said, there's 300 people on this floor. No one's saving a life. No one's educating a child. No one's coaching anyone. I said, what the fuck are we doing really? I said, what are we doing? What's our contribution to society? And Stuart Cameron's name, Scottish bloke, really good mate of mine. And he said, mate, you are making a massive contribution to society. And I said, how so? He said, 50% tax. I said, that's your contribution.
That is a big contribution.
And I thought to myself,
yeah.
okay, fair enough. But I said to someone, I actually said to people, I remember one day Will came up and did a speech at Citibank. And mate, some funny things happen. I remember being at Citibank and someone going, when the phone goes off on the desk, anyone can answer it. And so someone goes, KB, line 3. And I said, thanks. He goes, mate. I said, yeah. He said, mate, it's Will Carley. And I said, yeah. And I said, go, mate, what's going on? And he's like, oh, yeah, blah, 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 right? And then people go, do you know Will Carley? I said, yeah, I fucking played with the geezer. I'm like, you know what I mean?
Shared showers with
Yeah,
him.
so, but it's like, but what I'm saying, it's actually gratitude. I've just had some amazing experiences in my life. But I said to people up in the city, I said, I'm telling you right now, nothing. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how rich you are. There are feelings and emotions that are priceless. Right. And I said, nothing so far. I said, yes, I'm happy for that. Look, I'm happy to get a lot of money, right?
Yeah,
okay, that's the money.
Of course,
that's security. But there was emotions I had, good and bad, right? So that you cannot replicate that camaraderie, that tightness, that closeness that you had at rugby. So I had a lot of high points, played against the British Lions in 1989 for New South Wales, played for Queensland, played with some great players in Australia, like I played a lot against Michael Liner. He played club rugby. So Noddy was in the Queensland team. I joked with people, Michael Liner, Noddy and I got 103 caps for England, for Queensland. Noddy and I got 103 caps. He got 100. He got 100. I got 3. But no, so great moments. But there's also down moments. There's 2 games in particular that I just remember, and they're just, they were emotional at the time. I played in a varsity match. I played for Oxford in 1989 against Cambridge. And I had a bad leg. I had a torn muscle, and I had 6 needles before I went and played. And I played poorly, and we lost. That was really disappointing. But the one that really disappointed me was we played against Bath at the Stoop, and mate, it was literally the England team was pretty much on the field. So we had Leonard, Moore, Ackford, Winterbottom, Skinner, David Pears, Carling, Halliday, Harriman one wing, probably Everton Davis the other. I'm playing fullback. They've got they had front row, I think Victor Abugu, Dorr, Chilcott, I can't remember who was in their second rows, but they had Andy Robinson, John Hall, Ben Clark. How's that for a back row, right? And then Richard Hill at halfback, Stuart Barnes, Jerry Guscott, Phil de Glanville, maybe Addy Adebayo on one wing, possibly. Tony Swift was on the other, and I think either Jonathan Webb or Jonathan Callard at fullback. And mate, we're at Queen's, semi-final of the Cup. They've got the scaffolding up, big crowd, the old ground. And mate, we're down 20-0 at halftime. Anyway, second half we turned around. Cut a long story short, I played well, set up a try, Mate, we hit the front. Mate, the fucking crowd's going crazy. We're 24-20 or 25-20.
You've gone from 20-0
down at halftime. They've 25 unanswered points. And we are coming home with a wet sail. And the crowd is fucking going bonkers, right? Mate, Tony...
Well, just quickly, when you were at that point, in your head, have you already said, we've won this?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say we've won it, but something pretty drastic's got to go wrong for us to lose it. And it did. And it involved me. Mate, Touchfist comes through. Mate, I've made a poor attempt to tackle. He's gone under the sticks. They've kicked the goal. And within a few minutes, it's all over. And the thing that I did, which is the thing that as a rugby player, you never, ever, ever, ever want to do is let my mates down. In my mind, I was okay. I lost a brother and I'll live to fight another day. But mate, you never let your mates down. It's a cardinal sin. And I went in and I was heading to Jersey, and I was mate. It was so painful. Anyway, we go out that night. We're in a place called Crocs on Fulham Road in Parsons Green, Fulham, and anyway, we're in Pitcher and Piano. Then we go to this place, Crocs, and there was Martin Pepper, whose son is now playing for the England team. So Peps was there, Troy Coker was there, I think Craig Luxon, Kiwi scrum half, was there, and me. And I was at this point, I was slightly detached from the group, and there was these 3 blokes talking, and I just heard this guy go, "Oh, that's Troy Coker." And one guy goes, "Oh, mate, he's gay. He's gay, right?" And I turned around and I said, "Mate, why don't you go and tell him?
Tell him what you're saying.
Tell him what you're saying, right?" And the game was live on TV, right? That game was live on BBC, the game, right? He looks at me and goes, "Oh, fuck me. It's the fullback who missed the tackle who cost the game today." Right?
No. Well, just some punter said
Some punter. He said, "Oh, you're the bloke who missed the tackle." Mate. And I'm like, I'm fucking handbags. Like, mate, I can't.
Oh, you were ready to go?
Oh, mate, I'm throwing.
You were
them.
swinging?
Swing. Mate, I'm like, fucking, mate, I'm hopeless.
Were you not a fighter?
No.
Right.
But I'm like,
Yeah. But you're a top sportsman, so you're fit and strong.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of having a go sort of thing. Oh, mate, Troy, who can fight, he goes, "What the fuck's going on?" Mate, he is like, just a cyclone of destruction. Mate, this guy's like fucking, mate, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. And then next minute they're scampering out of Crocs. And I remember Troy at one stage, he's got this guy and he says to me, "Fucking hell, KB, why am I hitting these guys?" Mate,
But the fact that he was straight in.
Well, he'd never seen me throw a punch.
Yeah,
so he's thinking, fucking hell, if KB's throwing punches, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask any questions.
There's a reason.
I'm just going, there's a reason. I'm just going all in.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, it was like, fuck.
What a boy. I love that.
So, so that, but what I'm saying is that, again, that heartache and heartbreak and those emotions. So loss of my brother, some rugby stuff, some serious injuries, some losses, dealing with emotions and feelings. It's all about resilience and strength. Let me tell you something, right? So this is one of my favourite sayings with my clients. As we sit here today, you and I, we have survived 100% of our bad days.
Absolutely right. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, you're right. Correct, right?
You're correct.
100%. My brother dying, I went on to have great achievements. Injuries from rugby and heartache, mate, broken relationships, heartache, crying, all sorts, right? Addiction, recovery, my mother dying, mate, the sun comes up the next day. And the greater the reservoir of resilience and strength, like I know, whatever comes up, I've got, I've had a little bit of anxiety recently, and I went to the doctor and had a chat, and whatever comes up, right, I know I'm going to be okay because the body of evidence tells me I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
So so when I was getting back to the addiction, when I sat there, I thought, I got through Scott's situation. I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I'll get through it. Yeah, and mate, 9.5 years clean sober.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. You had gone through, like you said, your parents worked very hard to send you to a great school. And of course, you wanted to show them gratitude by doing the best you could with what they gave you, right? And you absolutely did that. But you were disciplined. You said, even at a young age, you said to your mother, "Don't worry, Mum, I'm going to not drink on the head to concentrate on my studying." So you'd spent 2 years getting on the piss. A few months.
Yeah.
But you stopped. So you had that strength in you. And to recognise at that age as well. I mean, when I was that age, I loved it. And there was no way I'd never had the discipline then. Definitely not. So hats off to you, sir. But please talk to me or tell the guys here, when were you first offered cocaine, right? So was that done when was it a rugby thing?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, right.
Okay, so a guy called Jason, we're still good mates today. Jason's in Australia these days. He's an English guy. So we met at Oxford University. He was a good mate of Troy's. He was a businessman. And he was a cool dude, good-looking guy, successful businessman, came to Queen's, and he's a good mate of mine today.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was at Queen's for 6 years, 3 as a player, and then 3 as assistant coach, first team coach. I coached the backs with Dick Vest and Andy Keast. And Jason would come along, we'd get him tickets. Troy was still playing. I'd retired, and we were just in the old clubhouse. And I remember upstairs there was 2 toilets, 2 cubicles in the men's toilet. And he said to me one day, he said, "We're having a beer." He said, "Do you want a line of cocaine?" I said, "Mate, I've never tried cocaine." So I'd be about 32. Mate, I was a risker in the sense of I left Rockhampton to go to Brisbane. I threw in a law degree. I went overseas. Like I was quite prepared to have a go at things.
Yeah,
So I smoked a bit of weed when I was a teenager. I had a couple of pills. Mate, I never for one moment did I think I was going to get addicted. I'm not an alcoholic in the sense of I do drugs. I do cocaine alcoholically, but at the end I wasn't drinking at all. I picked up pills and put them down. I smoked weed, you know.
Take it or leave it, whatever.
Smoke weed, you know, bit monged out, eat a load of food. Like fucking someone says, here you go, mate, piss yourself laughing for half an hour and go, what the fuck was that all about? You know what I mean? And with the pills, you know, take a pill, feel
I really love you, I love you.
Yeah, love you, I love you. Stick your head in the speaker for half an hour and then go, wow, you know. I just got all warm.
Exactly,
but I just didn't. So I knocked those on the head. And then, so Jason said, oh, you want a line of Coke? I must admit, first time I had a line of Coke, I thought, fucking, wow, it's a bit lively. And then, but it was a slow burner. I only used with him for probably the first year. He lives in Oxford. So he only came to London sort of once a month. So I was only using Coke sort of once a month. And then I was...
You were already in the city, but so 32, you were a couple of years in the city.
Yeah, so I was working in the city, started in the city when I was 30. So I was working in the city. Funny enough, I never got offered cocaine in the city. I'm sure it was there.
I'd assumed that was the...
No. And then look, every addict's got a different story. My story was that it all changed for me when I got a cocaine dealer's number. So I got a number off someone, I can't remember who. And then I had a number. And then that way, I could call it on, right? So I was sitting at work and I'd start ordering it in at 5 o'clock or 5:30. I'd go to Green Park. So I was at Canary Wharf for Citibank.
Yeah.
And I had an apartment on the river in the city. And so I would, you know, pick up on the way home, you know, and just pick up $1,000. And this is the thing about alcoholism and addiction. It's a progressive illness. So it started off once a month. And then when I look back, it just got, you know, once a week. And then it was every Friday night. Then it was every Friday and Saturday night. Then it was every Friday. Then it was every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. And so, but interestingly enough for me, I never used with anyone at Citibank. No one at Citibank knew that I was doing drugs. And everyone who says this finds it. Mate, when I've done these podcasts before, then it goes on YouTube and there's comments and whatever, people go, they must have known. But because I had this profile of this rugby playing, Oxford University,
loud, gregarious, confident personality.
No one sort of put two and two together. Actually, when I lost a lot of weight and I got clean and sober, and there was one guy I worked with for 15 years at Citibank, and I met up with him when I was 2 years clean and sober, and I told him I'd been a drug addict and, you know, been in rehab.
He was shocked.
He thought I was taking the piss. He said, "You are kidding me, aren't you?" I said, "Mate, no." And I said, "What the fuck do you think was happening when I lost all that weight?" They said, "We all thought you were doing triathlons."
Because you're a driven sportsman.
Mate, there's a guy.
Rugby stopped, so you must be...
Right. There's a guy called Gary Stevenson who's written a book called The Trading Game.
Yeah.
Right? And it's all over social media. It's a great book. Mate, I'm in it. Gary was my trainee. Right, Gary, I mentored Gary.
I've seen some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't he call himself the highest earner or something?
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I 2 years before he wrote the book, I reached out to him because just got to bear with me for a second. 12-step program, step 9 of a 12-step program, which is the basis of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, cocaine. 12-step program, right? Step 9 is to make amends. Step 9 is if you've, you know, to your wife or to your boss or whatever, saying, listen, you know, I wasn't a great version of myself because I was all fucked up on drink or drugs or whatever. But at the end of Gary's time at Citibank, he was a pain in the ass. And I told him so, right? Because he wasn't doing the team thing. He wasn't doing the rugby thing.
You were the director at that point.
I was a director of the company at Citibank, and Gary was a trader and he had one good year and then one stellar year. But then he downed tools because he was in fucking dispute with the bank. He wanted to leave, but there's deferred stock which you can't take, and he wanted to take it, and there's this fucking...
That was the golden handshake
thing.
Yeah.
And he just down tools. So he's sitting at the end of the desk with his fucking hoodie on and the earphones in, and like, mate, I'm a team player. So I go, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, I said, mate, you've got a fucking $1 million seat here. You've got this seat. You can make as much money as you want, and you're just sitting there being a fuckwit. Anyway, so I leave the bank, he leaves the bank. A number of years later, I reach out to him and said, look, let's go and have a, you know, meet up. So we go to this pub. I'm drinking soft drink. And I said to him, I just said, mate, look, I was a bit harsh on you at the end there, and I just wanted to apologise. And anyway, how you been? He told me he'd been up some bits and pieces. And I said, look, I've been in a rehab. And he said, what for? I said, cocaine addiction. He said, when? I said, mate, you sat beside me and I was getting 3 grams delivered at 9 o'clock every morning. And he said, bullshit. I said, no. He said, you were doing coke on a desk. I said, every fucking day.
How did you hide it? How could you secretly do it?
I was going to the toilet. Oh, mate, it was like, you know.
But because people, your cloak was your background, your personality. That was your cloak. No one would even think or question.
No. And the other thing about it, I was so secretive. Right, let me give you. So I'm sure there was people.
What? Because you were ashamed.
Oh, I was drenched in guilt, shame, remorse, and embarrassment. My parents didn't know. I couldn't tell my parents.
Because your dad.
Fuck, mate, I couldn't, mate, because of not how they'd react. My mother would have been, she wouldn't have understood, but she would have. Yeah. My mother went to the grave and didn't even know. Mate, I robbed my mother of peace of mind. Worst thing you could do to a mother. So the last 5 years of mum's life and of my using, because mum died 3 months when I was 3 months clean sober, and she didn't know. And I'd go back to Australia every year. For the last 5 years, I'd go back one stone lighter. So I'd go back. I went 14 and a half, 13. And she'd say to me, Kent, what is going on for you? Yeah. Mate, can't hide anything from mothers. And I just couldn't tell mum. I couldn't tell mum. I could not tell mum. And so, and if there was anyone using at Citibank, I didn't use with anyone at Citibank. And I only used with a couple of brokers. A couple of my brokers knew, I think one broker. So I stayed away from anyone who would blow my secret.
Wow. So it was really calculated.
Oh, mate, it was very, very, just extremely secret. Like, mate, no one at Quinn's knew. No one at Quinn's. Like, I mean, I wasn't using at Quinn's. I'd only had a line of cocaine or something. But I dropped out of all social circles, just came out here. So I was up in the city. And then when I came out here, out to Essex, I was using, and we had 2 young kids. And, mate, it was horrible. Mate, I've had to deal with taking my kids to kindergarten, you know, having had a couple of lines of cocaine. In the morning, I had to have a couple of lines of cocaine just to get started. Oh, horrendous.
But to the point where this is the only way I'm going to function.
Yeah.
And you convinced yourself that's
I had to.
All right.
I had to. And I wanted to stop. Mate, I'd be in, because the relationship with my ex was clearly no good because, well, I'm an addict. And the relationship's not great anyway. And we got 2 young kids and everything. And I was in the spare room. Spare room had an ensuite. And I was in there and I was just doing cocaine. And I'd go into this room and I'd literally be in the mirror and I'd be going, like, stop using cocaine. Fuck. Like, I'd be like, mate, I was going insane. And then I'd go, right. Tomorrow, I'm not doing any coke. I'm not doing like tomorrow. There's no coke. Mate, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience. My arm would be going over to the phone and I'd be there texting and going, right. We had 100 London black cabs and we were operating out of just off the A13, Raynham.
Yeah.
Right. And I'd be going in there every day just to fucking do cocaine, really. My business partner was doing all the work. So I'd meet my drug dealer at, what's the big shopping? Lakeside.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Meet him at Lakeside.
Yeah.
So I'd go, right, 10 a.m. Lakeside, right? And he'd turn up with 3 grams. And sometimes I'd be calling him back. I'd left Citibank at this stage. Sometimes I'd be calling him back in the afternoon. So I'd be like, mate, it was brutal. So I had this. So when I got clean sober, when I told people, so no one knew except Troy Coker and a couple of other guys who came on that 2015. Some guys I'd used with, but I'd never used consistently with anyone who sort of thought
that would start building that picture up
so
themselves.
What the fuck's going on with you? Except those rugby guys. So when I got clean sober, then it really got. Like now I'm talking to you on this podcast 100% open and honest. Why? I've dealt with all the guilt, shame, remorse, embarrassment. I've done about 750 NA meetings. I take people through the 12-step program. I sponsor, it's like mentoring. Yeah. I still take guys through the program. If I go to a meeting now, it's about to help other people as much as just to check in sort of thing, right? So I had some moments. Here's one for you. So I was about 18 months clean sober and I rang Wince. And he's over in Surrey. And I said, mate, I'm going to come. You free this weekend? His lovely wife, Trish. And he said, yeah. I said, mate, I'm going to come over. He said, what's up? I said, look, I just come over, just bite to eat, He said, yeah, cool. So we come over. I'll never forget it, mate. I'm standing in his kitchen. And I said, mate, and Trish was there. I'm happy to tell her as well. I said, mate, I've got to tell you something. And he's going, yeah, go on. And mate, I told him my story just like yours, mate. He never said a word for probably about 20 minutes. And I told him my story. Mate, I'm about 5 minutes in. I'm choking back to tears.
Yeah.
because it's mano to mano, you know, it's
Yeah,
man
it's
to
a bloke
man.
you heavily respect as well.
Well, mate, he's one of the toughest rugby guys that's ever played the game.
Yeah.
I'm getting emotional, and I'm telling him, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he said, mate, it's all right, it's all right. And I'm telling him, I said, look, I've got to get this all out.
Yeah.
And I told him, and he was like, seriously, he's fucking was looking at me. At one stage, his eyes were like dinner plate,
Glazed as well.
mouth open, and Trish is looking at me like in total disbelief. And one of the comments that I've heard from probably 80-90% of the people I've told the story that know me, they said, mate, we didn't know that you did one line of cocaine, let alone that you were addict. And I said, I couldn't tell anyone. I had to I had to go away from everyone. So I fought a lone battle there was only going to be one result. I was going to die.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't let anyone in. And the reason I wouldn't let anyone in was because of ego, pride, and all that guilt, shame, remorse, embarrassment, self-esteem. So one of the reasons why I do what I do these days is I want to be the guy that I would have reached out to if I could have, right? So I jump all over LinkedIn. I'm all over say, listen, I used to be a cocaine addict. I used to be up in the city. I used to be a rugby player. If you're struggling with any life issue, I don't just
it's not
restrict myself to cocaine.
Professional rugby player, cocaine abusers. No,
this is anyone, any man.
Everything's relatable.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah. And that's why I. So you asked me the question, where was my first line? But that was the journey. And it was just, the cocaine use was like this. And then in my 40s, my truth is this, I got to a point where I was struggling with life. So I was in a country I didn't want to be in anymore. I'd had enough of England. I was in a relationship I didn't want to be in anymore. I was in a job I didn't want to do anymore, right? And I was just fighting all of it, everything, and cocaine addiction. And I just kept on going lower and lower and lower and lower because I refused to put my hand up. Because if I put my hand up, I shred my own profile. I shred my own image. Everything that people thought of me was going to get shredded.
You need to protect that.
Mate, Mickey Skins, I'd see him every year.
The hardest man in the world.
Skins.
Dean, yeah.
So Skins, every year, we go to this Harlequins reunion, and I stopped going in the end. One of the reasons because of Skins. Because Skins would go, what's the fucking matter with you? Right? And I'd go, what do you mean? You look like fucking shit. You're lying. Right? And he'd be, Skins was, mate.
That's brilliant. I love that.
But it killed me because I'd go home from those lunches and go, poor Skins. He's showing care and compassion. I'm lying to him. I'm lying. I'm shredding the code, the rugby code.
I see.
You're right.
I see. Yeah.
So I'm going home. And what do? I do more coke.
Yeah.
Because I can't handle the feelings. I'm letting people down, and I'm going, mate, you are fucked. So I'm doing more coke. So I'm in this cycle I can't get out of, and I'm going down the drain. I've put a LinkedIn post on. I put it on a LinkedIn post. I told that story about Skins. I put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I said, Mickey Skinner, and I told that story, and I said, he reached out to me, and I said, I love Skins, not because of who he, rugby player, whatever, but he was there for me. And even though I pushed him away, I'll never forget it. Anyway, I saw him, and he said, mate, I saw the LinkedIn post. And he said to his wife, Anna, he said, well, how do I respond to this? And she said, look, you don't have to respond. And I said, mate, I didn't put that on there for you to respond. I'm not,
I was just talking through my experience.
Heart.
Yeah.
That's my heart. So the Mickey Skinners and Wentz and Pearsy and Luxy and all these blokes, when I told them, they just, and mate, there you go, a bit of emotion there. The thing that was really, really amazing that I didn't expect was that all I got back was love and support. That's all I got.
No judgment.
Zero. They just said to a man and a woman, they virtually all said, mate, we're just glad you're okay. That's all they said. People say, mate, why didn't you ring me up? Why didn't you ring me up? So, mate, addicts don't ring up.
Exactly. Well, I'm sorry. I put that as depression as well. When the black dog's finally close to your ankle, and when you're getting to that point, there's no way in a million years you've gone too far, and then it's just you and the black dog. You have to wrestle that.
Hard yards.
Just quickly on that, there's very potentially people in all of our lives that have a battle like you went through, and whether it's and it's, by the way, I work in construction, and I know it's rife in construction.
It is.
I know.
I know,
Absolutely.
yeah,
There
yeah.
are literally on the larger construction sites, there are dealers on the sites,
Yeah.
and they know who owes them what,
Mm.
and they've basically got and it's guaranteed sales to these guys.
Yeah.
But I was unaware of this. The only reason I knew about it is I had a small business and I had a cocaine addict work with me.
Mm.
He was the second day of meeting him. He told me exactly where he was. So basically, where I was cooking the dinner because we were staying away from home. As I'm cooking, he's gone, have a look at this, and he's put his torch up to his nose and showed that he's got no septum. It's like, wow, mate. How bad has it got to be to get to that? And then he kind of told me a similar story to he would never afforded £600,000, but sure, it clearly something that was still putting him in massive debt, and he was dealing with that. And I tried my best to help him, but I couldn't help him. I knew I could, because everything I tried to do, nothing was changing his behaviours or anything, and it was way beyond me. But I only knew that because he told me. I mean, he was jittery, and I would have known. But there will be people who are doing exactly what you did, just very secretly do. Is there anything? What other signs? How would we find?
Well, I mean, even if you got the signs, the question is not so much what are the signs, is how do you help these people? This is where it gets really, really tricky. I've got parents who have contacted me and saying, "Look, my son, my daughter's in trouble." Da 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 da. And it's heartbreaking because I know with addiction is until such time as they have that moment that I had, you can't help. Like, I didn't put my hand up, and you can't help anyone who won't help themselves. And so you've got, you've got mothers and fathers, and they find out that their son, or just say son's got, cocaine issues. And they say to the son, stop. And I can see both sides of the fence. I can see the addict. I couldn't stop. I did not feel at any stage that I had an option. I had to, at the end, I had to use, right? So if you've got a son who's an addict, he's addicted, because the thing about addiction is, it's cunning and baffling. The thing about addiction is that you're depending on something. You're relying on a substance. I had to use every day so that I could function. So you live to use and you use to live. So I wanted to do cocaine, and I had to have it to actually to function. So you live to use and you use to live, right? So when you've got, and so the mother or father will say, stop using cocaine, you're destroying the family. And the answer is, I can't fucking stop. I'm trying to stop. So you got these competing forces, and it's highly destructive. So what we say in recovery is that anyone who comes into contact with the addict is negatively affected. There's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it can actually destroy families, jobs, vocations. Like the addict will, if he stays in it long enough.
No.
I mean, I started it, mate, not too many addicts can say that they put 600 grand up their nose, right? And they've still got a fucking house. You know what I mean?
And the nose.
Yeah, the nose. So I started at a pretty high watermark that I lost, a reasonable degree of wealth, but I'm okay. But normally, job goes, house goes, wife goes, kids go, car goes. Eventually all goes.
It's a slow destruction.
And so, the signs are, guys going in and out of the toilet a lot. I mean, I was with a friend not long ago, and it disappointed me a bit because I thought, fuck, he's going to the toilet a little bit too much. And I wasn't looking for the signs, and I just thought, I know one of the signs. So we're talking, 3 or 4 of us talking. He comes back from the toilet. He's going, anyway, he's talking like an AK-47. And he's just run straight over the conversation we've had, right? And it's just, and that's, mate, there you go.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, fuck, he's on the gear. And I thought, what disappointed me was a lot of my mates, I still hang around with some guys that I do know use it occasionally.
Yeah.
They don't use it around me. They say, mate, we're not, and I go, listen, can you do me a favour? Don't bring any gear. And, and they said, no, mate. No.
And they're respectful enough to do that.
But not, mate, it's funny enough, since I've gotten clean and sober, I've actually realised how few of my friends actually use. None of the guys at Quincy use. None of the guys, not that I'm aware of. None of the guys that I played with or whatever. Guys up in the city on my desk, when I went through them in my brain, there might have been 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But it's
so it's not as rife as you think in the city.
It's I think it's becoming more so.
Backing cocaine away, of course it is.
But I reckon on the floor, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. All I do know is this. If you want it, you'll find it.
Of course.
I know that. It's rife in the sense of it's available. Yeah. You wouldn't have to ask too many questions to get to get, someone who's holding.
When you first went on the journey, you said after 8 days you relapsed and you spent 3 weeks
In
absolutely
hotel, yeah.
So you're 9.5 years clean. So 2015, no, was it end of 2016? Sorry.
Yeah.
Have you been tempted? And that's probably a really stupid question.
In your first
how
year,
have you dealt with that?
So first year's tough. And the reason it's tough is because it's a habit. So I had a habit of using every day.
Yeah.
So if you had a habit of having a can of Coke or coffee's a good one. People have habits where they, using coffee. If you said, look, stop, at 9 a.m. when you normally have your coffee, or 8 a.m. or 7 a.m., your body physiologically goes, it knows it's 7 a.m.
Where's the coffee?
Yeah. I'll give you an example, right? It's a strange analogy, but you'll get what I mean, right? I've heard this and I've seen it, right? There's an alcoholic. He told this story. I fucking laughed my head off. He said, oh, fuck it. He said when he was 5 years sober or something, he said, but when he first came in, right, he told the story that he would take the dog for a walk every night. And there was 3 pubs on the seafront at South End. And he'd go in to the 3 pubs and have 2 or 3 pints or whatever, right? And take dog for like 2-hour walk or something, right? And go home, right? So one day he's ill.
Right.
So the missus takes the dog. First pub, the dog's like,
this is home over here.
Yeah, this is what we do. Habit. And she's going like, and he's going, and she gets him out of that pub, right? The dog's not an alcoholic, but
it's used to the habit. Yeah, of course.
Habit, right? So taking that analogy of the dog now to a human being.
Right.
And by the way, that dog tried to go into fucking 3 pubs. Right? She's like, what are you doing? Well, you don't drink. What the fucking, I've got an alcoholic dog. You know what I mean? So take that analogy to me, or any human being, is that physiologically, so in the first year, if I went to somewhere where there was a bar and there was lights and there was music and people were laughing and joking, physiologically the brain goes, oh yeah, we have a drink, we do some Coke, and that's what happens. So you have to sort of rewire everything. So you got to recalibrate the whole situation. So I say recalibrate, redirect, reset. And in that first year, it's hard.
Wow.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
And I had using thoughts in my first few months. The miracle is by going to all those meetings and adopting the spiritual principles of, being a good person, being honest, being truthful, helping others. Humility is putting someone else before yourself.
Absolutely.
So inviting humility into my life. Yeah. So as a result of all of that and a number of years, physiologically now, day on, so I don't set out to be 6 months clean sober, a year clean sober. I just don't pick up today. One day at a time. I live my life one day at a time. I can't tell you the last time I thought of cocaine. Cannot tell you. It'd be years ago, right? I don't think of cocaine because, again, it's a habit. My life is now, physiologically, my life is around, I go to Mind, the mental health charity, and I volunteer there. I've got my clients online. I love it. I work with some of the most interesting people in the world.
Yeah.
Like, not well, in my world, you know what I mean? I've got this guy who I'm working with at the moment. I'll give as few details as possible. And by the way, I told you a story before about that girl. I changed a few details. I mean, she allows me to tell her story because it's a lot about confidentiality, right? Of course. But there's this guy I'm working at the moment. He's told the most amazing story. He's from Eastern Europe. Right, grew up in extreme poverty in Eastern Europe, right? Bright. Dad was a construction or worked at a quarry or something like that, and they had no money, but he was quite intelligent. He went to a decent school in that area, and then when he left school, there was no universities in that country that he could sort of get into. He went over to Germany. He had to learn German. He worked in bars, worked to get enough money to put himself through university, and now he is in mergers and acquisitions in a massive company in Canary Wharf in his early 30s, right? That's drive. And mate,
that's drive.
We've done 2 sessions and he wants me to mentor him about leadership and whatever. And I actually said to him yesterday, a bit of truth. I said to him yesterday, I said, I'm not too sure I've got what you want. I said, you are an extremely interesting person, one of the most unique people I've ever met in my life. I said, your story you told me is all about resilience and strength and drive, and you will not be denied, right? Yeah. Now you want to talk about leadership. And when he talks about leadership, he's quoting Churchill and Elon Musk. So he's talking about some sort of, stratospheric high leadership level. Or something. Yeah. I said, mate, look, I'm not too sure. He said, no. He said, no, you're the guy. He said, I researched. He said, and I've done a couple of coaching courses and they're all fucking textbook rhetoric and whatever.
Substance behind what's being said.
He said, the reason I reached out to you, and he said, I did my research and I'm fucking sure he did, just the way it is, right?
Yeah.
He said, because of what you've overcome. He said, what you've overcome, that's what I want to know. How did you do that?
Yeah,
What was your mindset and whatever? But it is just like, mate, crypto guy, he rings me up. He's Australian. I said, oh, Australian accent. He said, yeah. He said, I'm from your hometown. I said, oh, fuck, right, okay. I said, what's going on? Oh, I dropped him 10 or 20K on a weekend and with hookers and coke. And I said, okay, that'll do it. And I said, mate, what do you do? I said, because that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm a crypto trader. I said, you any good? He said, oh, $50 million in the bank. Good. Right? 30, and let's change his age, 31. He's young, right? So he goes, anyway, we do a number of sessions and mate, he's not having any blow ups. He got married. This is all in fucking like 3 months or something, right? You know, like he was going to get married anyway, but he wasn't too sure. He's dropped off all the, you know, he's using occasionally. So you got to turn the dial slowly.
Yes,
right?
yeah, you don't go straight to cold turkey.
So we're going all right, whatever. Anyway, he rings me up. He says, oh, I need a session. And I said, yeah, cool. Let's book it in for next week. What's going on? Anyway, there was a big liquidation of cryptocurrencies about 3 weeks ago.
It absolutely fell out.
Yeah. So he dropped $14 million in one day.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So, and the thing about it is, he says that to me, and I said, well, yeah. I mean, I saw the market. Like, yeah. And so, and he says to me, he goes, mate, I am fucking so happy I found you. I said, why? You've had counselling before or whatever, so what is it about me? He said, man, I haven't told you one thing that you've raised your eyebrows about. Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
Nothing's going to shock you.
Okay, market's crushed. You're obviously a big trader. You got $50 million in the bank, so you take big positions. So am I surprised you lost 14? I'm actually quite surprised you didn't lose more.
Yeah.
Given, you know, the extreme.
Yeah.
So very, very fortunate that I help people in, you know, and I don't want to give the impression that I only help people who are fucking multimillionaires, whatever. I've got all sorts of clients. As I said, the ones that I'm trying to get into at the moment is I know there's a lot of ex-premier players out there, premiership rugby players out there who are struggling, but they're not putting their hands up because of the same reason I didn't put my hand up. And I'm saying to them, reach out to me. That's what I'm saying.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I suppose that's a good way to end it. KB, honestly, I knew when I spoke to Jim Pearce as well, and after our phone call, I thought I really can't wait to see this guy, and that's why I'm so glad I managed to drive up here in your lovely house. Final words then, KB. Like you've just said, you know, anybody kind of looking for help, regardless of your background, whatever you're doing, give you a buzz. Where can they catch you? Where can they find you?
So I've got a website, Kent Bray Counselling and Mentoring, but I'd listen to my podcasts. Go to YouTube or Spotify. There's a number of podcasts. Obviously, Butts is going to be the best one out there. I'd say we'll probably win an award on the back of this. I certainly hope so. But there's some good podcasts out there. But the Kent Bray Counselling and Mentoring, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. Got a media guy helping me out with TikTok and Instagram. But if you Google Kent Bray, you'll find me very, very easily. And especially if you're a male and you've got that, I don't know who to speak to. Don't want to go to your father. Don't want to let him down. Don't want to disappoint your mother. Your mates are saying, oh, yeah, you'll be okay as you have 6 pints and you go home. You think, well, you know, I'm not really okay. If you're looking for someone who will listen to you, safe, non-judgmental, confidential space, contact me.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, Kent Bray, counsellor.
Thank you. Top man, Butts. Top man. Good stuff.
Well, thank God we got the second one in. Hang on. What's going on?